All right. Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Diamond Rivera of the Live Discussions with Diamond podcast. And this episode is sponsored by Through Bachata Radio, where you can listen in high quality live right now. And tonight we have a truly, truly special guest in the building, man, all the way from New York City, my friend, my brother, the infamous Jason Kimchi.
What's going on, Diamond? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my brother, man. It's been definitely a long time.
Yep. Been years.
Absolutely. And, me and you have definitely kept in contact during this quarantine session, just kind of going over things, reminiscing, going over memories of our New York City dance scene. And, I definitely think tonight, again, is a true celebration of your success from seeing you from your beginnings till now, just seeing the growth and progression. I think is really important. And honestly, it's definitely an honor to have you tonight.
Thanks for having me as always, brother.
Absolutely. And, before we really get started into things, how have you been?
Been working a lot.
Man, of course, you being an essential worker, but just honestly, a question I have, just with everything going on right now, how does it feel kind of being away from dance? So basically, we're not used to the normal as going to events every week, every few days out of the week. Kind of things have just really shifted. But how has that adaptation been for you over these last few months?
Oh, the first couple of months of quarantine was difficult. It's like taking a candy away from a baby. Like you want to dance, right? You're addicted to it. I love to say that I'm addicted to dancing, right? So it was very rough for the first couple of months, but over the days, over the weeks, it got much easier, right? I busied myself with work, with studies, so the transition definitely wasn't easy, but it happened, and I'm glad to say, what do you call it, that everything is going well still. So
All right. Yeah, absolutely. And for many people in New York City and the tri-state area who've been able to meet you, one thing I can say is you just have a very infectious attitude, a comfort around you. Seeing many people, especially in New York, you're at pre-COVID, you were at every social imaginable, and nowadays most people, I think, almost forget your real name is Jason. They just call you Kimchi. We'll probably definitely get into that.
yep.
But at least before we start things as well, during the interview, we'll be having real live time comments coming in. So during the interview, you'll probably see little blurbs on the bottom, just from guests that are tuning in. But I love for every guest that I have, it's really important to understand what was life like before dance. Who were you before the performer that everybody knows? So I definitely would love to kind of take it all the way back. I mean,
Ooh, all the way back to before the beginning.
mhm.
So before the beginning, I could just say that I was a very boring, what do you call it, college graduate, just, going to be an engineer. That was my path. What do you call it, working 60, 80 hours a week, grinding. That was the intent. All right. I was in a beautiful 4-year relationship. Um, and funny enough, the crumbling of that relationship is what got me into to Latin dance in general. Before my ex and I broke up, she was telling me so many things about salsa and tango scene, right? Not even bachata yet, mainly tango and salsa. So after we broke up, I got curious. I was like, huh, maybe it's something that I should give it a shot, right? Something I should start doing. So I ended up going on Groupon, finding what do you call it, a 2-month class pass for Piacanela Dance Studios, right? I know a lot of my friends started off at Piacanela Dance Studio just like I did. So yeah, we went on with the. So I bought the 2-month pass, started it, and ever since the first class, I got hooked. Funny enough, I got hooked onto salsa before anything else, right? I took
Mm.
pretty much classes almost every day because they had classes almost every day, right? So Monday through Saturday, and Sunday Sunday is the only day I took off. But yeah, Monday through Saturday, I would go for at least 1 or 2 classes right after work, and yeah, that's how it all started. From there, slowly. but surely bachata started creeping over, right? So on Fridays, they had a bachata class right after salsa class, right? On Monday through Thursday, they had two salsa classes that you could always take back to back. But on Fridays, they had that little, because Pia Canela always wanted to have that little social, right? Like every 2 weeks, they had like a beginner social for friendly people. So they wanted to cut the hours of the classes shorter, a little shorter, so they could add in that social. Long and behold, right after the salsa class is the bachata class. So, I was like, I've never heard of what bachata is, so let me give it a shot.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, the first class was a doozy. I didn't know how to move my hips. I didn't know where was I stepping. And I ended up making a fool out of myself for the first couple of classes. But eventually the music really got to me, right? The music, like the sentimentality of it, I just really connected with it, and I ended up really picking it up. And slowly but surely, I was taking strictly bachata classes instead of salsa classes. So I just transitioned over. And after a couple of months, I think it was about 5 or 6 months into it, I was taking a class with J Squared. All right, shout out to J Squared. They're the one of my favorites and one of the best urban bachata couple in my opinion. But yeah, so I was taking classes with J Squared, and over the weeks after that, Jonathan took me over to the side after a class at Las Chicas Locas on one of the Sundays and said if was asking, he was asking whether or not I was interested in competing, right? Whether or not I want to take it to the next level, right? And I have zero knowledge of actual bachata. I'm just a kid from Queens, just having fun, try to connect with people, socialize. And here is Jonathan asking me to see if I want to compete. I got scared, but at the same time, I was very excited to try it, right?
Yeah.
So after like a month or so, Jonathan, Jennifer, myself, and my friend Karina, right, we decided to give it a shot, right? So they picked me and Karina up, and Jonathan was like, yeah, you have a good style. You have a style that matches ours. So we want to train you so you can compete with us. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So yeah, that was the start of my bachata journey full on.
Wow. And it's the people you mentioned, especially J Square, Jonathan Godinez, and Jennifer Isabel of J Squared, also Jonathan, who runs Spin Media.
Yep.
Having the experience of him being a teacher, formerly being a student, also being a videographer, one of the top ones, being able to have that experience of watching what helps dancers really become successful, being able to go to these competitions and watch what the judges are looking for, and seeing a person like yourself, seeing that you had that interest, but you also had the potential, because I think that's a big difference when we're talking about performing. Like you said, in the beginning, it took a Groupon to kind of reel you in. And for many people who don't know, Biecanella has been one of the longest running Latin dance companies in New York City. I think over 20 years, I believe, right now.
Yeah, I think they just had the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, and realizing too, especially in New York City, teams come and go, companies come and go, but Biecanella has been here. And really, for me, I think they're the standard in terms of really creating a curriculum and creating an atmosphere. Definitely remember those beginner socials they've had, and that's great networking. It's brung people like you in. And like you said in the beginning, you're learning from them, and then you meet Jonathan, and then that progression is starting. Was there a moment that you realized maybe I do, besides want to take these classes, start getting into performing?
Yeah, so I think it was about a month or two into taking privates with J Squared. What do you call it? I was watching a lot of performances from LCL, right? And LCL, and even I think Bachata Rosa had a couple of what do you call it, performances here and there.
Yeah.
And I was very interested in wanting to learn choreo, but at the same time improving my technical skills, right? I wanted to learn how to actually dance, right? Like instead of just looking good.
Yeah.
So I think it was around that January or February. It might have been a little earlier. I started just looking out for teams, and some teams were looking for beginners. So wherever they were asking for people to what do you call it, join, I tried out, and then think at one point I was in about 6 to 7 teams consecutively while taking privates with J squared.
Wow. The dedication there, I mean, like, not just one school or two, but 6 to 8, and realizing that you're putting your foot in everything.
Yep, and all different styles. As I remember, Alex and Desiree were doing beginners. What do you call it? Well, funny enough, Desiree was. Oh no, Alex and Desiree were both auditioning people for their co-ed team and the ladies team, right?
Mm.
And I didn't have time to go to the co-ed team, but one of my friends coerced me to help her, like, for the confidence boost, just be with her in the ladies auditions, right? So I
Yeah.
asked Desiree, is it okay if I go? She said yes. And of course, Desiree being Desiree helped me, what do you call it, tried to get me to dance as well. So we did. And of course, she asked me right after the class. Well, I asked her after the class, hey, just by any chance, my friend does want me to join this team if, what do you call it, if she gets in, because she wants me to like help her out
Hmm.
in terms of just like having a friend being there, because she's also someone. Her name was Eski. She also didn't really know anybody in that team, or what that was auditioning. So as soon as I asked that, she was like, "Oh yeah, no, you definitely got in." I'm like, "Wait, I got into the what team?" She's like, "Yeah, I want you to join the ladies team." I'm like, "Okay." So that was one of the funny stories. Yeah. So I joined. So Desiree Godzel's ladies team was one of the teams I joined. Central Movement had, I think, like 3 teams at that point running, and somehow I managed to get into all of them.
Mm.
Right. I got into I was with Pura Vida with Mikey at that point as well.
Yes.
And yeah, I think there was one other team. I'm forgetting. There are a lot of things that happened.
Man.
So yeah, it's more like I just wanted to learn all the styles from all the teachers in New York, right? Like I wanted to learn from Jonathan Jennifer. I wanted to learn from Mikey and his style. I wanted to learn from what do you call it, the teachers that Anna had before, like Hannah Lena Olvera. She is one of the best dancers in my opinion in New York
Oh,
City,
yeah.
and she's one of the nicest people that I've ever met, and she taught me so much. Her and Pablo Tomasi initially. Um, yeah, so there were just so many people that I want to learn everything from everybody. So yeah, if they were asking for me to come, I'm like, yo, I'm there. And then yeah, for about 6 months, I was in all those teams for the sake of it.
Wow. And having the dedication and the time efficiency to be able to take on each of those challenges and still come out alive. Because,
Yeah.
we understand when it's a whole different experience when you're actually training with teams, especially if they have different styles. So, literally, having one style, leaving that classroom, going to another team who might have a totally different style, and you're being able to adapt. I think that's important. And right here we have my boy Barack over here from
What up,
DC.
Barack?
As well, we have the one and only media rebel Carlos.
Carlos, I got you with the soldier. Don't worry about it. I got you with the soldier.
But also, Barack says that you're also a singer. So,
Yes.
multifaceted. And as well, here we have the one and only from DC, Mr. Brian Lay, saying, Kimchi, you are truly a great human being. You always radiate such genuine positivity. Keep on shining. And that
Oh,
right
much love to you, bro.
there is amazing to hear, because the same impact you've laid on Brian, you've definitely laid on me since we've met. And we'll definitely get really into that as well as the other comments coming in, especially from JC.
Pura
Big,
vida. Yep.
big ups to Pura
Oh
Vida. And
boy.
many people don't know, JC, you, Jason, and myself were in Pura Vida
Yep.
at one point. As well, we've also been on
Kingsman.
Fausto's Kingsman,
Semi-pro.
semi-pro.
I know Fausto might not like it if we just say Kingsman, so we're gonna say semi-pro part.
Fausto, Kingsman, semi-pro.
Yep.
But what were your initial feelings? Kind of you being new, learning the styles, and then entering these socials. What was those initial feelings like for you?
I'm not really. It's a lot of. There was a lot of mixed emotions for sure, right? Um, Taking all the different aspects of the different styles and trying to apply it to myself, but at the same time, what to call it, trying to do it correctly, right? I know what to call it. One of the biggest things when it comes to what to call it, bachata and just dancing in general, social dancing in general, that I wanted to always focus on was how do I make sure that my followers are enjoying the dance, right? How the connection is genuine. Like I'm not just there to try to pick up girls or this and that. I mean, everybody has those kind of tendency sometimes, right? But in social dance, my main focus, and I think a lot of my friends' main focus, is to connect, to enjoy, and to really have fun, right? So I don't know. There were times when I would try something from one of the teams and it didn't work and it made me feel bad. And then other weeks when I tried exactly again the next week a different move that I learned from the same class and it works out, I'm like, oh shit, it's good. So it's like a roller coaster kind of emotion. You don't know what you're gonna get, but at the end of the day, they were all very, I would say, very influential and helpful for my growth, regardless of the outcome, right? Because I thankfully did have a lot of good friends who, and still to this day, they're good friends of mine who will always correct me when I do something wrong or when something didn't feel right or when something was off, right? And then, but at the same time, laughing with me at all the good times that we were sharing on and off the dance floor. I think you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
No, I think it's really important what you said because making sure that the follow is comfortable. Because I think, especially not just in New York, but a big issue in the dance community in general was many leads not really knowing how to lead, and
Yep.
also many follows not understanding how to truly follow.
Yep.
And especially when specifically bachata kind of came into New York in terms of the bachata scene, because I think we remember there was a time when salsa ruled, and
Yep.
uh, we remember bachata rooms were in a small little room. I still remember when before bachata, las chicas locas and dance sport, when they were in small little rooms that you had to walk down the hall, and
I
and
remember that room. Yep.
realizing how far we've come, the community, because I think the slogan of bachata has taken over. It has for over the past few years, but I think it's due to the community and the atmosphere itself.
Yep.
Realizing, especially with bachata, it really brought in a different crowd. Um, and then I think especially when Ataca la Mana hit, but also then Sensual Bachata kind of came into New York. And that
Yeah.
was kind of a big, big change because at one point, many people just either did as they call traditional or modern. And then Sensual Bachata came from Europe. And when it came to New York, I mean, I think for many people that I've talked to, it really was an attention grabber. It was
Yep.
something like, wow, it's to the eye, it was just different. It was more sensual. The connection was closer than ever. But I also think what happened was, especially New York, from my opinion, first being a dancer before a videographer, was the training wasn't always there. And it
Very true.
also showed when you went to socials. When I would speak to follows while I'm filming and I'm asking them, why did you make that face? Or, what was wrong during the actual dance? And many of the follows would say the lead either doesn't pay attention to me, the lead is doing their own thing, the lead doesn't know how to lead. And that, I think, for me, especially in New York, has been a big issue. But for you, being able to be trained from J Squared, Bia Canela, and etc., how was it really? What were those receptions like from a lot of the follows that you were able to dance with?
It's mostly positive, thankfully. Um, I was taught by almost everybody, right? Like J Squared especially, and Fausto even, and also Alex and Desiree specifically. They hammered into your head that dancing is not a toy. It's not just a tool. It's a language. It's It's a tool of communication, if anything, right? So
Mm,
anytime you're social dancing with somebody, right, you're talking to them. You're having a conversation, right? You don't. It's you don't want to have. You don't want to use rough language. You don't want to uh, fight. You don't want to have an argument. You want to have a lovely, smooth conversation, right?
yeah,
And that's what dance is. So from day one, Jonathan and Jennifer and Alex and Desiree specifically, they taught me that you have to connect with your follow, right? You have to connect with your whoever you're dancing with, whether if it's another guy or a girl, right? Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because what do you call it? There are a lot of things. There are a lot of different things you could do. It's not just what do you call it, close position, body rolls, and stuff like that. You could also, have fun with your boys. Just turn on some bachata songs, and then just do footwork, right? But
Yeah.
again, it's an atmosphere you're creating. It's a safe space you have to create, right? And then you have to have everything that's done in the conversation has to be, tailored to a safe conversation, a fun conversation.
Mm, absolutely. Like you said, from Alex and Desiree and the other people that you've been able to learn from, they were able to teach you lessons. And I think that really separates the real teachers from the not so real, in a sense, because
Yep.
a real teacher can not only just teach you footwork and choreography, but they can teach you lessons that will be useful for years to come.
Yep.
Because I think the biggest issue, especially in New York or places that dance is very saturated, is you get so much quantity, but the quality in terms can get lost. And I think over the years, especially in New York, for me, dancing many years, seeing the transition from the salsa scene being rarely dominant to now that there is a even playing field. And I would also say in terms of the bachata scene, the atmosphere is almost 180. Um, and especially us being in New York, like you said, different companies that have been here with Central Movement, Alex and Desiree, J Squared, even Bia Canela. We started also seeing an influx of new teachers, new
Yep.
companies coming around. And a question I definitely have is, how did you feel? Did you feel like there was really that issue of the quality versus quantity topic?
Oh, definitely. It's one of the few reasons why I do have a love-hate relationship, and this is the hate part of the bachata scene for me. It's is the fact that the quality definitely isn't as up to par as it could be or as it should be, right? A lot of people in New York, they tend to basically regurgitate what they learn in congresses or in other YouTube videos, but they rarely have the fundamentals completely grasped down, right? Like if I ask certain people to just show me a basic, right? But 9 out of 10 times, I would get a basic that doesn't have the fundamentals of weight transfer and being groundedness. Yeah, so it's a heartbreaking thing when I see it in a lot of the socials, and yeah, it's definitely the quality definitely hasn't gone down. I don't know if quantity even went up in New York City. To
Mm,
be honest with you, because people constantly cycle in and out of it.
yep.
Um, but yeah, like I know people teach choreos over connection. People teach predictions over like technique. And it's not to say that they don't know how to do it themselves. It's just some people don't know how to teach it, right? It's
Mm,
one thing to be a good dancer. It's also another thing to be a good teacher, right? And I don't think what do you call it? A lot of people have enough experience teaching fully, and they're trying to teach what they learned in a YouTube video or in a congress,
yep.
and it kind of shows. I went to some classes like, and they're not well articulated. They don't, and sometimes they don't even know how to show it even, right? They just do it
Mm,
in their social dances, but they don't know how to break it down. They don't know how to get to the nitty gritty of it. And yeah, that's the thing that really breaks my heart.
and again, spoken from honesty and transparency, I respect it because I saw the same thing. And then when we were able to be introduced to one another during these events, for me, I could definitely say I grew a connection with you because I saw the humility. I saw that you genuinely respected this art form and you weren't just another dancer that wanted to get that hot break and that hot start and everyone to see you. Because I definitely think, especially my transition to being a videographer, it really changed things for me from being a performer and being filmed to now being the filmer. My relationship with dancers throughout the tri state changed, some for the better, some for the worst. I mean, for me, we've had those discussions of you can see me at an event filming, and you can tell the vibe of the event, and you
Yep.
can kind of tell. And for me, I loved was that something we talked about was the notion of dancers going to an event and actually just dancing. without worrying about being on camera.
Yep.
And that's something that I would love to discuss quickly of I think that's been an issue for many years was dancers saw the camera and there's either two different types of people. We have the deer in the headlights people that see a light and oh my god, I'm frozen, I don't know what to do. And then we have those that can just act on command and not even feel like a camera's there. And we've seen it. Just those two different types of people. But I also think is that a lot of people got misconstrued was they shouldn't be worrying about a camera. They shouldn't be worrying about, oh, am I going to be in this new promo? For my
Yep.
relationships with different videographers in the scene, from dance sport and other events, we talk and we learn advice from one another. So a question I definitely have is when you started going to events, what kind of dancers were you kind of shown in terms of just social dancing? Did you notice like a certain type of what dancers like to do when a camera comes around? Was there a different feeling, a different attitude from kind of your conversations with other dancers?
Right. So I'm gonna start with a little disclaimer. I'm a very camera shy person in general,
Mm.
right? I do avoid the camera as much as I can, no matter what kind of event it is, right? It's just I don't know. It's just me and cameras don't go well. I don't think I have a photogenic face, so I get a little afraid of that. Um, but yeah, most of the time, what do you call it? I mean, on my personal side, like I don't like whether there's a camera or not. My focus is to dance, right? I want to connect with whoever I'm dancing with. So cameras or not, it's we are gonna perform for each other. We're gonna talk. We're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna make it look beautiful because we got to make it feel beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And my personal opinion, and this is the same philosophy that I share with all of my what do you call it partners, past and present, that we're not here to sell our bodies. We're not here to sell moves. We're here to sell a story, right? We're
Mm.
here to sell an image that is what do you call it very heartfelt, right? It's supposed to pierce the hearts of our friends or whoever's watching,
Yeah.
right? We could care less about what we call getting thousands of views on Instagram or what we call YouTube. It'd be nice, sure, but that's not our main focus. Our main focus is, oh my God, are they enjoying it, right?
Yeah.
And like Margaret, so one really key thing that made both Margaret and I really happy was the core focus of our partnership, right? We wanted to make sure that wherever we teach or wherever we dance, that people see that it's a connection dance. It's not a flashy, showy dance. It can be, but that's not our focus, right? And I remember one of our when we were doing a demo at I think it was a Soul Dance Center, one of the students came up to us afterwards saying, "I felt the connection," and we were just the happiest people at that point because that's exactly what we were trying to sell, right? We were trying to be like, yes, it's about the connection. It's about a story.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, when I go to majority of these socials, like I definitely see I see the people with the cameras or people who always stick by the cameras and they're like, oh, I want to dance with my favorite person in front of
Yeah.
a camera. I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. Like, for example, I had a couple of friends who come up to me and be like, yo, I want to dance with you, but I want to get it on film. I'm like, cool, but don't chase the camera. Like, I'm just gonna
Yeah.
dance with you, right? And no matter with the camera or not, it's gonna be the same thing. Like for me, right? Like, if anything, I might do a little worse because I don't like the camera, right? So yeah, no, like even some of the attitudes that I see with some of these dancers, like you could tell, like when the camera's not on you, when the camera's on them, they don't care too much about the flashy moves. And some dancers are like, when the camera's on, they're like, "You gotta dip me, you gotta do this." I'm like, I don't need to, I don't want to, like it's one of those things.
No, it's crazy because you've seen me at events, especially and I'm gonna say this disclaimer, my favorite bachata event of all time in New York City is Bachata Rosa. And for me, being at that event many, many times, I've seen the influx of dancers. Besides Bachata Rosa, I've been to many events in New York and definitely has seen that as you have those people that when the camera's there, oh, they're ready. But who's to say your partner's not? Partner's ready.
Right.
I'm realizing I've seen many instances of girls with sprained necks.
Yep.
I've seen guys or leads in general drop their follows because they're trying to impress whoever's around. And also a disclaimer: as a videographer, for me, in my standpoint, my focus is not so much what you're doing, but how you're feeling.
Yep.
Because for me, I think the most important thing is besides capturing those moments, it's within that moment. What's your facial expressions like? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you both enjoying yourself? Because I think that's a big issue too. Many people and many people who have seen me film in New York know I'm very honest. If you
Mhm.
ask me a question, or say, for instance, I've had people say, um, please don't film me. Perfectly fine. I've had people that have seen me at many events, the same focus. Don't film me. Don't worry, I wasn't going to. And I think too, a lot of dancers don't get the honesty. It's like, hey, I'm filming not for, like you said, the views, because I think a lot of the videographers who start out thinking that way are doing it with the wrong intentions, because they see a video or they see, especially in our dance community, the biggest thing is a person gets a camera, they think they got $1,000 camera. Oh man, I'm gonna do awesome. I'm gonna film this couple because I know that everybody loves them and I'm gonna get tons of views. But also too, what people like myself look for is the angles. What's the intention? What's the understanding? Do you know how these dancers move? How is the movement of your camera? What are you capturing? Also, how is the lighting? Those things really come into play. And I think something that we've talked about, and people like Carlos, who is on here as well, is saying here, we capture the vibe and energy of the moment. And
Carlos
that's
is a master behind the camera. I swear to
yeah,
God, I love this guy.
and for people like him and myself and many other videographers, I feel like we have pure intentions of how we're filming, because other people can have a camera and just the way they film it doesn't capture the genuineness. It looks more commercial. And I think a lot of people have to understand that at the end of the day, the focus is showing the purity, the honesty in your event, rather than just the glitz and glam, and all the tricks and flips and dips. Because I think that too was a big issue, especially in New York, the
Yep.
dip. Especially when bachata came, everybody thought they could dip someone.
Oh Lord, when people were doing dips to what they call traditional songs, I'm like, why? Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to do a trick to a traditional song? Oh
I
Lord.
mean, wait, but you know the answer because they saw it on YouTube.
Yep.
So a question I have now is, you're starting out in the dance scene, you go to socials, and then I'm assuming you're hearing about congresses, weekenders, festivals.
Hmm.
What was your first congress or weekend or a festival you went to?
It was Baltimore Salsa Bachata Festival 2018. That was
Mm,
the first one I went ever. First weekender festival, anything, period. That was the first one.
man, Mr. I believe it's with Raj and DJ Dola.
Yep, yep,
That event I've heard many good things about as well. I believe in the future we'll be having an interview with Raj Moore to talk more about the Baltimore events. Of course, Carlos here says Maryland, and realizing that DMV area, Baltimore's events are really special, from the visuals, from the atmosphere, from the dancers that attend. I've
yep.
heard nothing but great things. And again, I love is that you're able to go to an event that is inviting, that makes you feel good, rather than you kind of being a new dancer and feeling more intimidated.
Yep.
Going to an event that really is comfortable allows you to be yourself. You're able to connect with other dancers, some that you know personally, and some you're meeting for the first time. Um, and for me, I would say is places like Baltimore, and many of congresses and places. It's really, besides the presentation of the event, it's really the focus of what are they bringing not just for the artists, what are they bringing for the people that pay?
Right.
What is the experience going to be like? Because I've heard many stories from people going to an event that kind of totally warps their mind and changes their outlook on everything. Um, and thankfully for yourself, your first Congress was a successful one.
It
And
was.
I'm assuming that gave you the itch of
Yep.
the difference between taking a class and partying till almost 6 to 8 in the morning to get up to do another class at 8. So,
Pretty much.
man, but so as you're starting, as you're going to these congresses, when did you realize at the point that you felt that you could actually teach?
So teaching is something that wasn't on my mind for a long time, right? It was more of just the fact that I want to share what I learned with my friends, right? Because I would be going to classes from almost every institution that was teaching dance, right? After a certain point. And for example, my friend, like the people that I started off with, especially the ones I went to congresses with, right? Like Catherine, Ezgi, Neil, my boys, they ended up, what do you call it, not being able to make certain classes, a certain events. So they wanted to learn, right? So to help them out, all I would do is, rent out a room and just share my like knowledge with them, right? Share
Mm,
whatever techniques that I learned, whatever things that I got learned, and at the same time, I invited other dancers who want to just practice, right?
mm,
And this is back then when I was still full time going to Pia Canela, as much as I can. Pearl Studios had a lot of good cheap rooms, so I would just rent one out for about an hour and a half once a week or maybe twice a week, and then
mhm,
people would come through and ask me questions, and if I had a question for them for something different, and they would help me out. So I never really started seeing the idea of teaching until I think, I guess, like a year and a half to 2 years into my dance journey, when I realized that people, one, they don't really teach. Oh, and I don't know the exact one, but I know the turn of events that made me want to start teaching. A lot of times people tend to, especially in the essential bachata scene, they don't teach any technique and people get injured. I got
mm,
injured and a couple of my friends got injured. So my main focus at this point, after a couple of injuries, was okay, I have to start showing people how to do things correctly, right? So
mm.
I would have to learn from some people, right? And then I have to teach what they taught me so everybody could dance safely, right? Because I know you've seen it sometimes when we go to Bachata Rosa, and there are people who are just dipping people, and like you said, there are a lot of people were being dropped, or and sorry for some of the followers to say that I'm not gonna what do you call it? I'm not gonna say a lot of things, but some of the followers would be dipping for you, and you would have to
Oh
catch
man.
them, and that would hurt. That's where my injuries came from usually. So yeah, it's mainly because I wanted to help people understand, like, you can dance without hurting people. You don't have to be so rough. You don't have to,
Yeah.
what do you call it? If as long as you know the fundamentals, you could do anything, and you could do it anything, yeah, any move, anywhere, anyhow.
Mm,
So yeah, that's when I started taking it more seriously. And then as I was trying to like peel back the layers, what do I have to learn? Who do I have to learn from? All that stuff.
yeah.
What do you call it? Fundamentally, I didn't. I wasn't the best with my footwork or my groundedness and my dancing as well. So New Jersey Bachata Festival 2018. Shout out to Mikey G and Vladdy.
Oh yeah.
I took Alex and Desiree's teacher certification course, right? The beginner to certification course,
Yeah.
which entails a brief history of bachata itself, and also they give you guidelines and how to actually teach both by showing and by saying, right? So like,
Yeah.
big shout outs to Alex and Desiree. They are, in my opinion, still to this day one of the best, if not definitely my top three bachata couples. Period. But yeah, that's when after taking that class, I started what I call just exploring more. So that was the Dominican and the traditional
Yeah.
foundations that I learned. After learning that, I'm like, all right, let me now learn similar what I call fundamentals for everything else, right? So I was
Mm,
just looking through history. I took Rudy's what do you call it, intro bachata class, like the history of bachata class, at least twice. And yeah, that's when I started like really taking it seriously in terms of, all right, I got to learn so I could share what I learned, right? And this is the thing that I've been taught since I was a kid is you can't really say you're a teacher if you don't know what do you call it. Yeah, you can't really say you're a teacher if you don't know how to teach, right? So I had to learn how to teach as well. So yeah, slowly it just grew to what it was, and yeah, it went from just me wanting to teach my friends how to be safe, and then of course, like, since my friends started growing, it just became the scene that I wanted to start teaching in terms of like, all right, this is how you can do things safely, right? And
yeah.
even, I mean, for example, for some of the followers in the scene, Like I know a lot of people are not comfortable with how close that they get in terms of sensual bachata, right? People
Yeah.
want to keep the distance. And I know a lot of leaders in the scene tend to, kind of force the close position where they're like really close, like trying to hug you. And I don't appreciate that. Like I didn't appreciate my friends being uncomfortable as well. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I want to teach other leads are you could do all the moves you're doing in sensual bachata without being so close.
Absolutely. And I say it so excited because it's a notion that people like Alex and Desiree teach you, but also Corky and Judith, if you want to count the originals. I mean,
Yep.
I've seen them do demos upon demos, and of course, there's a closeness and a connection there. But there's always a time that both of the artists are able to do their own thing individually. And I think especially what happened was in New York with Central Bachata, it was an attention grabber. People loved to see it. They wanted to learn the latest moves, but
Yep.
most of them learned through YouTube. Most of them didn't know about weight transfers and foot placements and the do's and don'ts because I think, especially in New York, and we've talked about it, we've seen it. Um, a big issue happened was the uncomfortableness of many follows, especially females having that uncomfortability, even talking to both of us, telling us at events
Yep.
about how some leads make them question if this is the dance scene they want to be a part of.
Yep.
And that can be a very touchy subject, but it's an honest subject because this is coming from other people's experiences. Because everything we're talking about is through our experience, stuff
Yep.
that we've experienced, we've seen, we've talked about, and it's topics that for many people they don't know how to discuss. But when you've seen it and you've handled it and you understand it's the teaching. It starts with the teaching. When you have teachers that are focused on not just teaching the basics, but teaching fundamentals, teaching guidelines,
Yep.
rules and regulations that I think dancers should have on and off stage. Because that right there, I've heard many female follows in particular tell me how their experience at a social altered their perception on whether they should keep dancing or not. Because in reality, there are male leads that are creepy. And it's not right that a woman's experience at an event can alter because of this one person's actions. And I think for me and you, we've been very big proponents on not allowing that. Or if we see something, we say something.
Right.
Because again, I feel like our scene has so much potential to flourish, but there's always a few bad apples.
Yep.
And I really respect when you're talking about learning as you're learning, and then you take these certifications in order to become a teacher. But the focus is teaching your students how to have a fun but safe dance.
Right.
Because like I said, sensual bachata in particular is focused on connection, being extremely close. And people have to realize if you didn't get it by now, is even if you're dancing with a follow, pay attention to the follow, pay attention to the facial expressions, pay attention to body language. That's a big key. Body language is very key. And before we go on, we have someone here. We'll figure it out who it is. Says, "Oh my God, I was able to dance with Kimchi a few times at our dance to beats practice prior to COVID. When he found out I was from Detroit, he started calling me Detroit. I call him New York. Looking forward to when I could dance with him again." I'm assuming you know that it is.
Not gonna lie, no.
Well, hopefully they'll say something later on. But honestly, seeing the progression over the years, you're getting these certifications. You're now focused on helping others enjoy the dance you love safely, but also having fun. And I believe you had told me that it was Jonathan and the J Square Collective that inspired you then to compete.
Yep.
And that's something also that really separates many dancers and creatives, especially in our scene. There's those that gain an interest in classes, they learn classes, they go over time, they go to socials, and that's the atmosphere they love. Then we have those that graduate or gradually go from just being social dancers to now being part of a team performing. And then there are those that gradually go from performing to now competing. And that there is a whole different beast for sure. But how was that experience like of kind of going from just performing now to now competing in a larger audience?
Honestly, it wasn't that big of a transition. Personally, I never thought competing was what do you call it? I don't know. I had a different approach when it came to competing, especially the way Jonathan and Jennifer approached it. It's basically you're social dancing, but with a certain set of rules, and that's all you're really
Yeah.
doing, right? So for me, I already enjoy the style of dance that I do. I don't have to really, work on. Well, I had a lot of technique to work on, but it wasn't something where I had to like relearn everything. It's more like, no, I know how to dance bachata more or less. So let's just prepare for the competition in terms of because we did freestyle bachata. That's mostly where I competed, and that's my favorite category to compete at. And so yeah, you just I don't know. It wasn't really that much big of a difference for me. It's like it was just like performing, if anything, actually, but freestyle, and I enjoyed it. It's much
Okay.
more fun to enjoy a freestyle dance, and of course, like I said from the get go, what do you call it? It's just like what Shani, my first partner, and Margaret and I, we like to sell. We sell connection, right? So
Yeah.
if it happens that it happens on a stage, or if it happens on a demo, it happens on a social dance, it happens on a competition stage, it's gonna be the same thing for us, So.
Mm. No, no, I definitely appreciate that because I love to hear the experiences of dancers that went from just doing it on a stage to now doing it for a prize. I mean, that kind of brings a different beast out of you, a competitive edge, a competitive nature, but still being able to say, hey, competition time is competition time. Coming back home, I'm just here to enjoy myself. And that's also too what separates a lot of dancers of being able to turn the switch on and off. Because I think too, like we discussed, the biggest issue, and especially in social dancing, is that so many dancers feel like it's a performance rather than just an experience.
Yep.
I think that's a big thing. And I think, especially with us talking about it, many people have the same sentiment, but many people just don't know how to discuss it. And sometimes just bringing it to the forefront is important because the same experiences me and you have gone through, or have seen, or have witnessed, many of us go through. And I think for people like me and you, people who love this scene for what it is, but also understand and has some low points, realizes that it's people like us that are trying to push the culture forward. Because again, it's so much more than just going to a social. I mean, the people you also bring with you to your events, you're giving them experience. It's like you're bringing a friend of yours who's never danced bachata to a bachata rosa social,
Yep.
and just having them have a great time instead of them feeling intimidated about, oh my god, I don't know how to dance, teach me or help me. But seeing you over the years, networking, going from congress to social to weekender, I mean, you coming all the way from New York, hopping over to DC, talking about the Viva la Bachata socials I've been seeing visuals of you at. I mean, seeing that you love this community, you love this scene, and it's inspired you because, I mean, to take trips on places endlessly because of the love of dance, that must mean something.
Yeah. Dance has given me a lot, and I still have so much that I want to give back to it because of that. Both the dance itself, the culture, and especially the community. Right. I've gotten so many friends. I've made so many friends from it, and majority of actually all of my friends are long lifelong friends. There you go. So yeah, I
And
just have this huge appreciation for it because it gave me so much. And like you said, there are downsides of it, but there is a lot of upsides to it, and I want bachata. I want not just bachata, actually all dance scenes to really
yeah,
thrive.
absolutely. I mean, because especially what I've been loving as well is, as much as we can give it up for salsa and bachata, another art form or two art forms that I'm really loving in New York that's been really pushing ahead is kizomba and zouk. And that's something, especially the zouk scene in New York City, has been so, in a sense, integrated also with bachata because we see bachata
Yeah.
dancers going into zouk, vice versa. But I love the fusion of it, understanding you can blend the two art forms, and that's a fusion.
Yep.
And that's something I really have been loved seeing the past 2 or 3 years of everyone kind of being incorporated. And now it helps me transition to the segment that I call the randoms, which is a 10-part uh, questionnaire in a sense that allows myself and the audience to get to know you a little bit better. Some questions can be a little spicy, some questions they'll be fun, but overall, I think we'll definitely get a better understanding of you. So definitely let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, favorite food.
Korean barbecue.
All right. Within that first question, your favorite Korean barbecue restaurant.
Ooh, right now it has to be a place called it's a tie. There's two great restaurants in Queens. One's called Picnic Garden, right? It's an all you
Okay.
could eat buffet Korean barbecue place, and the meat's delicious, and the selection is great. But if I want a sit down family style restaurant, there's a place called Mapo, which is
Mhm.
another Korean barbecue style that's all in what do you call it? It's just like 5 blocks away from my house. I'm like, why not?
Even Adriana here, like Korean barbecue.
Oh yeah, every time I'm in DC, we try to get Korean barbecue.
Wait, what about pho?
That's a Brian thing.
Okay. Even Carlos here said taking notes for that Korean place.
Carlos, you know the next time you come to Queens, I'm taking you there, so don't worry about it.
Absolutely, man. All right. Next question is your go-to. If you could have one song, you're at a social right now. What is that one song you have to hear that it's like, I gotta pick someone up and go on the dance floor right now?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'd have to go with Confiésale. Danny J.
Okay.
Confiésale. I
All
got a
right.
lot of memories with that song. As soon as it comes up, I just hear it. I'm like, all right, I gotta dance it. Who's coming?
Someone says here, whatever your questions are, it can't be spicier than of course, Brian with the pho. All right. Next question is, what is your dream vacation destination?
My dream vacation destination is somewhere lost in the woods, somewhere in a mountainous wooded area, a cabin over there. It doesn't have to be a big cabin as long as that's an open space.
Okay.
I just love nature, so yeah.
And that's one thing I hear a lot about with people like us from the city is we've been in the city all our life. We need some peace and quiet.
Yeah. Yep.
As we're in New York, there are fire alarms going off every 15, 20 minutes. So this
Yep.
is our norm. So and also here, C says, good song, Find Me When COVID is Over for that song.
I got you. I got you.
Oh man. All right. Next question is, what did you want to be at 10 years old?
At 10 years old, I wanted to be a professional wrestler.
Okay. Who was your favorite wrestler?
It has to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. Actually, no, I'm sorry. No, actually, no. He's my number two. My absolute favorite wrestler is Kane.
Oh, I like that.
Glenn
I
Jacobs.
like that.
That man he's still a monster to this day. Like I don't know how he does it. But yeah, Kane, all-time favorite. His attitude, his stature, everything. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. You can't copy it. It's just who he is.
Okay. I like that. I like that. We're taking it to the, I would say, WWF days before
Yep.
WWE, but okay, a professional wrestler, as well as you wearing your wrestling jacket from high school. I see you there. I like the
Yep.
plug. Next question is, what would be your spirit animal?
Oh, it has to be a pet. Well, in the world today, like if I have to choose between the animals that we have right now in the earth only, I'd have to say a panda.
Okay.
Right? It's what I am. But if I am allowed to include Pokemon, which I will just for the sake of it, I will
Ooh,
definitely
okay.
be a Snorlax. Like there's no question about it.
You know what? And with that, I have to give a special shout out to DJ Immersive with his immersive gaming. Just finished playing Pokemon Yellow, which I definitely love.
Oh,
All right.
classic.
Now, this one, next question, number 6, is definitely going to be a little spicy. All
Hmm.
right. What is a really big turnoff for you for a follow?
Oh, do I have to answer this one?
Absolutely. I would love to hear your answer.
People who are not dancing to the music.
Mm.
Like for me, music flows through me, right? Music flows through, I think, almost everybody. If if you're not dancing to what the music is telling you, if you're just trying to do some crazy moves, like dip yourself, for example, please stay away from me. I don't want to dance with you. I don't. I'll talk with you, but
Yeah.
no. I've been injured too many times.
Yeah. All right. All right. Next question is, who are the Bachasians?
So the Bachasians is a fun little group that I created with my friend Chun. Funny enough, so our original fun bachata group, right, was actually all Asian people technically, right? It was me, my friend Catherine, my other friend Ezgi, and my boy Neil. We're all we all come from Asia in some of our ancestry. The name came through our fifth member. His name is Chun, right? So he suggested, combining bachata and Asian, so Bachasian, right? So it was a running gag for a little bit, and then mainly just Chun and I, because to this day people still get me and Chun confused. He's like a brother to me. I love the guy.
No,
So
that's
he said it, and it stuck with me, particularly more than anything else, because I love bachata, and I'm a proud Asian. So one day I decided, you know what? Let's make this a real thing, right? Let's not expand, but let's just have, in a way, leave an impact, right? The way I want to leave, or the way I want to accept people. Well, I want to even say accept the way I see Bachasians is it's to be an all-inclusive kind of group, right? It's a group where, our focus and our love of dance is what rules everything, you know? And it's the name is just Bachasian because it was literally started by Asians, but it's an all-inclusive group. Anybody and everybody is welcome as long as what do you call it? It's good vibes. That's the main thing. We want to sell the good vibes.
absolutely. I
And
definitely.
it was heavily influenced by two wonderful groups, the MOB, right? Shout outs to Damien. Like his community is one of the loveliest communities in the dance scene.
I mean,
And
we're part of it as well. So
exactly, you and I are both part of it. That's why. And of course, my boys Rami and Danny
yeah,
Cabrera,
Bacha
Bacha
Twin.
Twins. That's where it really came through. We're like, hey, we don't want to copy Bacha Twins per se. So I did talk to both Rami and Danny. I was, hey, is it okay if I, start making the label Bachasians go through? And they're like, yeah, go for it. I love it. And then there you go. So Bachasians became a thing.
All right.
And yeah, that's who Bachasians are. We're not we're not an individual person. We're not this and that. It's more like I want to eventually like be a vibe. I just want Bachasians
Yeah.
to be a vibe.
Okay. I love it. I love it. All right. Next question would be 3 people that have been most influential to you at this point in your life.
In totality or in terms of dancing?
Totality. It could be dance related or life.
I think I'm gonna do it with the dance related because the life thing is gonna take too long for me to think of. When it comes to dancing, what do you call it? In no particular order, right?
Yeah.
Hannah Lena Olvera.
Yeah.
She definitely influenced. She helped me a lot with how I started Essential Bachata. She taught me a lot of technique. She introduced me to following, right? Yeah, no, it's a that's a funny story. I'll tell you. I'll get to that later. So yeah, Hannah Lena is definitely one of them. Margaret, my current partner, Margaret, she is one of the biggest influences, if not the biggest influence in my life in terms of the dance career. And last person is someone I became really close with. She is she's a sister to me basically. Her name is Raquel. So yeah.
All right. I like that. I like that. And also, side story, talking about Hannah Lena Olvera, I used to dance with her years ago with Flamboyant, and to be honest, the same way she kind of guided you was the same way with me. And I definitely got to give it up to Hannah, from our hours of rehearsals,
Yep.
from just her genuinely calm nature. Um, and honestly, I mean, she is a gem in our dance community.
Big shout outs to Hannah. And also for those who don't know, she recently got her US citizenship. So another big congrats again to her.
Much love to Hannah. Much love. All
Yep.
right. Next question would be a special talent that many people wouldn't know.
A special talent. All right. I won't say singing because some people already know that I sing. I could do a front split.
Oh, wow. I mean, that also probably is from the many hours of training with different companies.
Actually, no, it came from what do you call it? So this is a hidden. No, it's not a hidden talent. It's just something I've been doing since I was a kid. I've been doing martial arts since I was 4 years old.
Mm,
So yeah, I never lost the front split, thankfully.
okay. I mean, hopefully no one has to see that front split.
If it comes in a performance, it's gonna come out.
All right. Hopefully, when things get better, I'm going to challenge to see that front split.
Oh, I got you.
All right. And the last one is, and this definitely gets people. If you were on an island,
hmm
what are 3 things that you would have to have with you? But disclaimer, there is no Wi-Fi on this island.
Got you. 3 things on an island.
And before you even get started, I would say Alemana, Tanya, had honestly one of the best responses out of most of our episodes. So, I mean, let's see. I'm hoping you definitely get it right.
We'll see. Ugh. I don't know. I honestly don't know what I would bring.
Maybe a Flint starter,
No,
maybe.
I wouldn't even do that. Uh,
Oh.
hmm. Wow, you got me stumped on this one for sure. Holy crap! Hold up. I gotta think about it. A paracord rope
Okay.
because they're multi-purpose. I would bring either a machete or a bayonet,
Okay.
and uh, yeah, I don't know the third one.
How about some type of food, some type of water drinking agent, like
No, no, because if Mother Nature wants me alive, I'll survive. If not, I'll die over there. I'm a cheat. I'm a cheat on this one a little bit.
okay.
Cheat a little bit on this one. I'm gonna bring my brother.
Okay. I mean, that's not really a cheat.
Okay.
You can bring anything.
Nothing that my brother and I can't do.
You need something you need someone to talk to because you don't want to be a castaway and start talking to a soccer ball.
Yep, we'll
Or
figure
in,
things out.
in your case, a dance shoe. We don't want it to go there. So but honestly, thank you definitely for taking the time out to do this segment. I definitely feel like I've learned a lot more about you. And now it kind of helps me transition before we really get into the present. Is when you did talk about influential people like Hannah, also earlier when you talked about Shay Squared and etc. Over the years that you've been able to just see how the scene has grown, been to many events, been a part of many collaborations and projects. What have really for you been the overall positives and negatives that you've seen within our dancing?
The overall positives is the constant influx of genuinely interested and generally fun people who want to dance, right? There are countless number of people who constantly come in, they want to learn, they want to really dance, and I always appreciate it, right? When I see people just enjoying themselves. Like, people like you and I, we love it when we see everyone else smile as much as when we smile, So that's the biggest positives of it. The biggest negative, I don't know if there's a single biggest negative. There are a couple big negatives. Um, I think the big negative is honestly, it still does have to do with the people, though, right?
Yeah.
It's the attitude that certain people have. It's actually it ties all back together. The lack of humility a lot of people have, right?
Mm.
I know for a fact, like having worked with so many people, like, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect, right? I'm not saying anybody's perfect. Everybody has times when they are going to, step off their stool or, say something stupid or do something stupid. But having the humility to accept and really understand when or if you do something stupid or wrong, and like, I have thankfully one of the greatest support systems in my life, right? Like anytime I do something stupid or say something dumb or make a mistake, my friends will tell me, yo, you're being stupid,
Yeah.
and I get to learn from it, and I'm very grateful. But there are a lot of other people who take even the slightest what do you call it, critique. It's not even an insult, like sometimes
Yeah.
critiques, and they're gonna be like, oh, what do you know? Oh, I've been doing this for 6 months. How much you been doing? I'm like, what? Like some people take things too personally and too seriously, and it kind of ruins the scene, right? um and I mean, it also goes back to the leading half the time, where a lot of times leads are trying to tell followers how to follow. You're like, what? Like, have you ever followed? Like, what are you trying to do? Like, oh, you're supposed to do a booty roll there. I'm like, no. If did you lead a booty roll? Okay, then she could do a booty roll. But if not, then you don't have to. Like
Mm.
the fact that a lot of these people with a lot of egos and little humility try to kind of like lock up our dancers or the
Yeah.
scene is kind of what, in my opinion, the biggest negative. And to this day, it kind of still is.
Mm. And I would say, even if I could answer that, I think a big positive is the appreciation for
Mm,
the art form, the growth of years before when it was just a small room to now you have bachata congresses and festivals that are more. There are more, honestly, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong. There are more bachata events happening thus far than salsa events. I mean, I think it's just a changing of the guard slowly, but always for me, I must have settled first before anything. But I would say a positive in that is just the growth and the progression of the scene, the attention to it.
hmm
A big negative and something that we've talked about, in my opinion, again, is people teaching too soon. Feeling I've taken 6 months to a year, maybe a year and a half.
Yep.
But when you're taking it with the only one person, you kind of look like that person. And for me, over the years, I've definitely can say, and then people have asked me, I've been completely honest. I think uh, we don't need, there shouldn't be, how should I say this? A lot of people who are teaching should not be teaching.
I agree
Uh,
completely.
just point blank. It's just from my observation, from even students telling me when I'm filming a class, I've had students tell me behind the scenes, like, I didn't enjoy this class. I didn't feel like I learned much. Um, I think to a big issue with a lot of teachers, they don't, like you said, know how to teach. Simple thing as if they can't even answer a question about weight transfer and foot placement and the body movement and why this works. And that's a key sign of knowing if the person that's teaching you should not be your teacher. If they can't answer the fundamental questions that present themselves. So I'm hopefully, at least through our conversation, people can learn. And now that kind of helps me now transition to the present day. And really, I think for me, my last event was late February, a few weeks before March, and it was at Bachata Rosa. And realizing how much our dance scene was affected. And over the past months ahead, just seeing a difference in our scene. And if you've known me, again, I'm very honest and transparent.
hmm
Realizing I've been very outspoken these many months from my own perspective, not speaking on other people's experience, but for me, loving the scene so much, but then also seeing the lack of humility, the lack of respect, the lack of understanding, meaning in a sense that when everything hit, some people didn't even realize there were also people in our dance community that were greatly affected.
Yep.
From one person that just finished recovering, Dave Paris. Um, we've lost also, I believe, one or two women that I know personally or know of that were in the scene that would go to the same socials as us, and they passed. And for me, also talking to you and letting you know, even as a videographer, I didn't feel it was safe. My wife, who works in the medical field, didn't feel it was safe for me to continue filming during a pandemic.
Right.
Totally agreed, totally understood. Um, but us talking as well, having more an understanding for yourself, how was that experience of, we're in a quarantine and then things are slowly getting loosened up. And from what we've talked about, the scene, or there have been people in the dance scene that have created events, um, some safely and a lot not safely. Um, and for me, I would love to know your honest opinion on a lot of these underground events or things that have been happening, especially in New York, for us at one point being the epicenter.
Right. The biggest thing is I completely understand where everybody's coming from, right? In the sense of wanting to socialize, wanting to dance, I completely understand that part, right? I think there's nobody in the world who's gonna say, "Oh, I don't want people to hang out." No, everybody, including myself, want people to have fun and live their best lives. But there's a time, a place, and a way to do it. Like when people are safe, when everything is good with the world, yes, that's the best time, in my opinion, to have fun. But in a pandemic like this, again, we're not. I'm not personally. I'm not saying don't go out and have fun. I'm saying if you do, please be safe. Please take your precautions. Please do your research. Please make sure that you, not just for you, but your neighbors and your friends, your families are safe. Right? What do you call it? I go to work all the time, right? And I'm in the office sometimes of the week, and I see a lot of people. What do you call it? A lot of my coworkers actually who's have had COVID as well,
Mhm.
and it just affects a lot of people's lives. And the
Yeah.
ignorance that I see with what do you call it, how certain people take COVID, and though someone, one of my friends, Owen Wex, said it very well.
Yeah.
That
Big win from DC.
yeah, sir, he's one of the most genuine guys I've ever met. But he was, he mentioned what do you call it, a phrase that made me laugh, um, like pandemic promoters, or yeah, COVID promoters slash pandemic promoters. Those are the
Mm.
people who are trying to what do you call it, kind of pick on and take what's they're kind of feeding on the desires that people have,
Yeah.
while the pandemic is going, and it's unsafe. It's not good. Um, when people were doing the outdoor socials, like my main concern was, hey, how come nobody's wearing masks? Or majority of the people aren't wearing masks. I'm
Yeah.
not saying don't go out and dance. I'm saying, yo, go out. You can go out and dance if you want, but
Mhm.
put your mask on. Prepare yourself with hand sanitizers, because it only takes one small mistake for everybody to get it,
It's
and
true.
it's happened in multiple places. All right. And the funny thing for me is the fact that I'm a big guy. I'm an obese person, right? Well, actually, I'm a chubby, what do you call, fluffy panda is what I like to call myself. But anyway, so for a guy like me who is clinically overweight, right? That's I'm just by definition I'm overweight, and there's
Yeah.
nothing I'm whatever it is. I could go to an outdoor social or even an indoor social, dance for 2, 3, 4 hours with a mask on. If I could do it with a mask, in my opinion, anybody can.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like it's not that hard. And also, something that a lot of other people don't understand is, okay, why are you if you're saying that, what do you call it, your masks get wet, carry multiple masks. They're cheap, they're or free, right? It's not that hard. Like for me on a regular basis, I carry 3 to 4 masks. One cotton for general purpose, and then when I have to do certain things with more close interactions, like for example, if I go to the gym, I want the nurse's mask or the N95 mask if I can get them.
Absolutely.
It's not that hard to get it. So it's the lack of human empathy that I see within people that just really does hurt me, and it's the fact that I've talked to a lot of people, and it's sad because they claim to understand it, but they still
Mhm.
want to host events, or they still want to do it. I'm like, well, like, I'm telling you this because you're my friends. Like, that's why you shouldn't do it,
Yeah.
right? But people are gonna be people that I can't do more than just you know tell them, right? What am I gonna do? Like, lock them up in the basement and be like, you can't go out until after COVID is over. I mean, No, but yeah, it's one of those things that it's yeah. I mean, what can we really do except for just tell people to be the best people that they can, and at least for me, I'm trying to lead by example. I know you're leading by example, and a lot of people are trying to do their best to lead by example. Um, so that yeah, it is what it is for now.
Yeah, I mean, and something you touched on was again, people like us. I'm not telling people not to dance in a way. It's more about, are you putting safety as a priority before anything? Because for me, also realizing that my voice was being heard by other people, but also understanding that maybe that's also to hurt my financial um, longevity, my financial relationship with different organizers who are doing these such events. And I've told them, I care more about the community than I care about money.
Right.
I care more about the safety of our community than I care about filming your event. And me and you have talked. I've talked to directors, organizers, even artists that have chosen to do these such classes without masks, without a care, because oh, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect me. But also me dancing as long as I have, just wanting to see people be safe. Because it's also, like you said, the lack of empathy that a lot of these people don't understand. They just think it's a simple dance. We get it. But when you have healthcare workers, first responders, essential workers that have been through this pandemic from the beginning, I think it's definitely doing a disservice to our dance community. And I'm totally honest when I tell people, the same people that maybe I filmed months ago, pre-COVID, and felt like I had a good relationship, I learned a lot about them through this. Understanding what their bottom line was and realizing they could care less about their community. They only cared about having fun. And for me, I would tell people the same way I can have a conversation with you here, Jason, about it is the same way I can bring it up to them face to face. Because to be honest, it saddens me, it disappoints me. The same people I thought that I considered friends, and I thought, man, they have this scene in the best interest of their heart, really don't. They're the ones creating events at maybe Long Island City, Queens, Jersey, you name it, and seeing these videos and people just not understanding how it can be deemed disrespectful, not even caring about safety. Masks are optional. If you don't want to wear one, you don't have to wear one. And realizing like, hey, if we all were in this together and we kept things safe, things would be much more easier. Things would be more acceptable.
Right.
Um, and I think again, not just our dance community, but the world, the U.S. particular, would be in a lot better spirits when you had the right direction and leadership. Because it's not just in the government aspect, but also in the local aspect. When we have our leaders from our community doing the right thing, that's the message we want to portray. And I think, especially during these last few months, I've told you as well, is that, hey, these same events I've done previously, seeing what they've been able to do now and not really feeling it, I don't want to work with these people. I'm fine going back into this dance scene a future from now when things are at their normalcy and working specific events for people that I feel have been looking out for our community. Um, and just seeing really the forward outlook of our scene. For you, Jason, what do you feel is the future for our dance scene in New York?
I want to say I'm hopeful, and for the most part, I am. Um, COVID or not, one thing's for sure: the community will grow. The community will evolve constantly. It will have, and to the end of time, we will have both good eggs and bad eggs. Right? We're gonna have people who are strictly for the community, and we're gonna have people who are strictly for themselves. And at the end of the day, it's both are fine, right? In a sense, right? Being selfish is to a degree good, and being selfless is also to a degree good. But there's also it's the whole idea of the extremes. You just don't want it to be an extreme thing, you know. Um, I feel based on how things are going right now, in New York City, I don't have the biggest confidence that a lot of things are going to change. right?
Yeah.
As vocal as I can be, as vocal as my friends and I could be, right? There's always going to be prejudice. There's always going to be someone saying something, doing something, and as much as it saddens me, the truth is, people are going to remain people.
Yeah.
So not just to me, but to all my personal friends, everyone, coming in new and new, or even the old people. The main thing I want to urge, at least tell my friends, is don't look for a community. Well, the community is great, but look for connections. Look for your friends. Look for people who will take care of you. Because a lot of people who will say it but won't commit to it.
Yeah.
And it's a trial and error for sure. But yeah, I want to be hopeful for New York, the New York's dance scene. But right now, I'm not really hopeful. Sadly, I don't see the biggest, brightest future at the moment. Talent wise, for salsa is great. It's still great. I think salsa is gonna,
Yeah.
remain king. In my personal opinion, I think salsa is still gonna be king in New York City, at least,
Yeah.
especially when COVID is over, because then everyone's gonna be learning, and salsa itself has grown. Right, we have
Absolutely.
a lot of legends in New York City, like even what do you call it, like Franklin Diaz, and all these great artists. They're constantly evolving. For bachata, I don't really know. Oh, I'm sorry. For regular bachata, also, it will technically, in my opinion, evolve. Right? We have Edwin Ferreras, we have Alex and Desiree, we have Carlos Cinta, all those
Mm.
wonderful artists will make it big and great. But in terms of the central bachata scene, the urban bachata scene, I don't see a huge bright future at the moment.
I mean, again, I definitely do appreciate your honesty. And honestly, I think tonight has been a really interesting, entertaining, and engaging talk because, talking about your beginnings and seeing now, I can honestly say you definitely are successful within our community because you're able to network and make the right connections, but also to further your dance career, you're able to take lessons and classes from many different artists and teachers because I think that's important, being versatile. And just seeing your growth over the years, from you just social dancing to performing to even winning at competitions or competing in them. I think, again, those are all lessons you're able to learn from that help you become better. And I think at least tonight, I've been able to learn a lot more about you, not just as Kimchi the dancer, but Jason the person. And I think that's what's most important. And us talking about our experiences is awesome, And for me, at least, I think we've definitely been able to cover a lot. But like I tell many of my guests, this is our first interview and definitely won't be our last because I'd love to have you on for the future. At least do before we do go. Um, do you have any last words for myself and the audience?
Well, first to you, bro. I love seeing your success. I've been seeing your growth since day one, and you're constantly inspiring me. You're constantly making me, want to work harder. And it's just a blessing to know you as a friend, as a brother. I love you, man. To the audience, thank you to everybody tuning in. Thank you for all my friends. Thank you for all the strangers, even my enemies. Thank you for helping me grow, right? Because no matter who you are, and you've left an impact in my life. And I know a lot of people won't say it out loud, but it's true. No matter who you are, no matter what stage or where I met you, you have left an impact in my life, and I very much appreciate it. Friends might become enemies, enemies might become friends. I don't care about the semantics. I just care that, hopefully I will continue to leave good impressions on everybody. Much love and joy, and good vibes only. Let's go.
Absolutely, man. And again, tonight has been a wonderful talk, but I definitely can't wait for our next episode, which should definitely be more entertaining as well, where we'll get into the real experiences of what it's like being at Congresses for people who haven't been, knowing for the future really what to expect. We'll talk about really great moments at Congresses, festivals, etc. But tonight's been awesome. I thank you for taking your time. I thank you just from what you've been able to contribute to our dance scene, from what I've seen in many other people. But again, I thank you for honestly pushing forward to really becoming one of the leaders of our dance community for the future, because there are very few people that can take that role. But I definitely think with your wisdom, your courage, and determination, I mean that path is definitely much closer than farther.
You're too kind, Diamond. You're too kind.
But again, thank you, Jason. Thank you, audience. Thank you, everyone tuning in at Bachata Radio to this amazing interview. And definitely, everyone, we will see you soon. Again, stay safe and have a great night.